Welcome back, everybody, to the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. I'm Sean Kennedy. I'm joined, as always, by Dan Urda, our NFL handicapper. Dan, pretty big weekend for you.
Feels good to be back.
You went 4-1. You got engaged, too, but really the 4-1 thing is the thing that you're probably most excited about.
Yeah, it goes handicapping one, personal life, anything else second.
Okay, and joined in studio by your fiance. I guess now that you're engaged, you can't go anywhere without her.
She wouldn't let me out of the house, so I had to promise her I would take her out afterwards.
Okay, so fair enough. That's for all you single guys out there. That's what you have to look forward to.
Don't do it ever.
Run. No. All right, but more importantly for our listeners, 4-1 week got you back up to 7-7 on the year after that not promising start to the season, but you've righted the ship and better times ahead, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we're going to quickly go over the Week 4 action. We'll start with the Thursday night game, which you had a side on with the New York Giants plus 3.5. And not only did they cover, but they won very easily, 45-14 over the Redskins. Dan, what's the one thing you took away from that game?
I love betting based on public overreactions to the week before. And I knew that everyone was going to overreact to the way that Kirk Cousins played against the Eagles, when really I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. I think he's good when he's not facing any kind of pressure. The Giants don't play that kind of defense like the Eagles do. Eagles didn't touch him. Giants applied the pressure, made him throw, 2 or 3 interceptions?
Yeah, they definitely had him under duress a lot more than the Eagles were able to do in the week prior. And obviously the score showed it. The Redskins were never in the game. The Giants' offense was marching up and down the field on the Redskins' defense. And Eli had the last 3 weeks, aside from that week 1 where everything was a mess for the Giants, he's looked very good, even in those the losses that he had the last few weeks.
Exactly, and we discussed last week also, losing D'Angelo Hall leaves that secondary so ridiculously thin that it's going to be hard to trust this team against anybody. That's just not an NFL caliber secondary.
No, and it's pretty sad when D'Angelo Hall is the big loss to begin with, because he's an average cornerback.
And he's not
an all-pro caliber, so if he's your best to begin with, and then you lose him, and you're not left with very much. So looking ahead, we'll look for spots that maybe good passing offense, because it's going to exploit that Redskins defense. But continuing on with Week 4 action, another win for you, which was a pretty easy one, was Baltimore -3, and they ended up winning 38-10. And Steve Smith called for blood and guts, and he pretty much pulled out the heart of that Carolina Panthers defense.
There was no chance that he was not going to have a huge game. There is zero chance of him not just going off against his old team. If you've ever heard him talk or seen the kind of guy he is, there was no way he wasn't rubbing it in their face.
Yeah, I wanted to look for a prop that just said Steve Smith is going to explode today, but I didn't see that on the board.
Yes, so. Would have been like -680.
Yeah, it would have been. You would have had to give a lot of juice there.
Carolina's not good. You know, it was not. We still had a couple of points of value based on the first 2 weeks, in which they looked a lot better than people thought they did. But we've seen the last 2 weeks against Pittsburgh and now Baltimore. And I like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, but they're not exactly offensive juggernauts, and they've ripped the defense apart. So this is, I feel a lot better about my under 8.5 wins bet for them too.
It's funny you mention that they're not actually a juggernaut. I feel pretty confident with this Baltimore offense right now.
They look good.
They're 6th in the league in offensive DVOA, and Flacco has he's done well throughout the season, and the only loss they had was on the road against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's undefeated. For all we know, they're one of the better teams in the league. They've certainly looked the part. So
they're everybody's darling right now.
Yeah, that doesn't, a road loss in Cincinnati doesn't look that bad right now. A close loss at that. So I'm really high on Baltimore right now. Their defense, it's not the 2000 version of the Baltimore Ravens, but it's certainly not bad. And with Steve Smith adding a weapon in the wide receiver core, and they did lose Dennis Pitta, but they have some other options there.
It's crazy. No Ray Rice, no Dennis Pitta. Torrey Smith's doing nothing, and the offense still looks really good.
Yeah, so they're doing a good job using different guys in different spots. Justin Forsett had a big week last week, and they got that rookie, Taliaferro. He's also performed when he's given the chance. So
I had one fantasy league last week where I was absolutely crushed by buys, and there was no running backs I could have picked up. But that dude, Kyle Joswick, or whatever that guy's name is, on Baltimore.
Yeah, there's a lot of Z's and K's.
He's listed as a running back on fantasy, and he's the only hope, the only guy available. It's a very, very deep league. So I picked him up, put him in, and he got down to the 1 yard line, stretching for a touchdown. Almost was the play of my fantasy career.
That probably would have made your season. Because you always.
I started Kyle Joswick and got a touchdown from him.
I started Brandon Oliver in a league last week that I was biased.
It was a bad bye week.
Yeah, it was. But anyway, Baltimore -3. That was your second win of week 4. Moving on, your lone loss of the week was Tennessee +7.5. You took 2 7.5 point dogs last week, and you said you're pretty confident at least one of them will cover, maybe not both. And this was certainly not the one that did. Indianapolis 41-17. They ran all over a Charlie Whitehurst-led.
That was so stupid.
Tennessee.
It was so stupid to me. When we talked last week, I was talking about how I expected improvement from Locker, because that was before we knew he wasn't playing. When it came out that he wasn't playing, I really should have gotten off the bet. The crazy thing is the line didn't move.
Yeah, that was suspicious.
That's the main reason why I didn't get off of it. That's the main reason I didn't go ahead and I thought, okay, this line's not moving. They really want everyone on Indy here. And turns out everyone on Indy had a very easy win.
Yeah, the Colts offense, especially with Andrew Luck right now firing on all cylinders, leading the NFL in passing yards, leading in touchdowns. Any subpar defense, he's just going to rip apart at this point, especially at home.
He's awesome, and I don't even think people realize how good he is, because that team is not a good team.
No,
like a 53-man roster, if you were to take the average talent level, that's probably like a C minus team. But he's just so good. It's almost like what Peyton Manning used to do when they put him on those teams that pretty much had him and Marvin Harrison, and he would make things happen.
Yeah, their defense especially is awful. They lost their best guy in the secondary, Antoine Bethea, in the offseason, and then Mathis is now out for the year. He's their leading pass rush guy. So they don't have a lot defensively. Their running back situation, Bradshaw has done some nice stuff in the passing game, but he's not a really great between the tackles runner at this point in his career. And we all know what Trent Richardson has given him at this point, which is next to nothing. So the fact that he's him, Reggie Wayne, and T.Y. Hilton are dragging this team to what looks to be another AFC South championship.
Yeah, it's going to take a pretty good situation for me to bet against Andrew Luck going forward.
Especially at home. So that was the lone loss of the week. As I mentioned, you were on 2 7.5 point dogs in week 4. The other one was Tampa Bay, and not only did they cover, but they won outright, knocking out a ton of survivor entries in the process over the Steelers.
Love this play. I considered the money line too. Didn't do it. I'm happy taking the points, but other than there was like a 1 quarter period where it looked like Tampa Bay might be falling and Pittsburgh might be making their move. But other than that, like 12, 15-minute span, Tampa Bay was right with them the entire way from start to finish.
Yeah, Steelers hurt themselves a lot. They had a lot of penalties in this game that not only derailed some of their own drives, but extended some of the Buccaneers ones. And it looked like they were going to run away with it, but then the Bucs had Gerald McCoy back this week, and he really helped solidify that rush defense for them. Le'Veon Bell in the second half had something like 8 yards on 12 carries. When if they're able to get anything going on the ground, they can extend drives and really saw away the game. But they weren't able to do that. They gave the Buccaneers a chance to get back in it, and then on that final drive, they had the ball with a minute left, no timeouts, and they let up a 41-yard play. They got them back into the red zone, and then they were able to finish. So a lot of chances for the Steelers to really put this away, but I think that kind of shows that they're not an elite team that they might have looked like the week before when they had that big victory.
And like I said, I love betting against overreactions, and this was a double overreaction game.
Yeah, you had everybody in the world down on the Bucs and everybody really high on the Steelers coming off their big win. So public perception is if you fade it, you'll often come out on top, I think, in the long run. All right, so finally in week 4, your last play was the Sunday night game. You had the over of the Saints-Cowboys, which was 52.5.
I got 53.
You got
what was it? Oh, it was 55.
55 was the
okay.
final. As the Cowboys ended up winning 38-17, and it took 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter for that to cover. So you couldn't have felt too comfortable about that one. What did you see in that game?
I mean, for a long time, it looked like a loss, especially after the first quarter. I expected the Saints to come out firing. I considered taking the Saints, and I thought that was going to take some home field garbage time points for this to go over. It was actually the exact opposite. That's the good thing about a total, though. It doesn't matter who scores them.
No, it's just Points got to get on the scoreboard whatever way they can. And the one thing I learned from this game, I'm done taking the Saints on the road.
100%. One done on the road.
Yeah, they played three road games thus far this season. In all three, they were favorites, and obviously they lost all three, so they get the cover as a road favorite this season. So their defense is just not anywhere near the top 10 unit it was last year when Rex Ryan first came on board. And the offense without Darren Sproles and Colston looks like he might not be the consistent performer he was in years past.
Yep.
They're not the same offensive team that I've seen.
Not at all.
So 4-1 week 4. We'll get to the week 5 plays in just a moment. We're going to do a new segment here. We're going to call it Stump the Sharp. Going to ask Dan a few questions. Some are going to be gambling related. Some are not. Just general NFL questions. We'll see how he does. Maybe and you guys out there can learn a thing or two. All right. So the first question, Dan. There are 2 teams right now in the NFL that are undefeated versus the spread. Can you name?
Oh. Undefeated against the spread.
And I'll let you think about that one. The second question is related. There's 3 teams, conversely, that have yet to record a win against the spread.
The Jaguars have not won against the spread.
That is correct. They're
The
0-4.
Redskins? No, they beat the Jaguars.
Yep, the Redskins are not one of the 3. Jacksonville is.
San Diego.
For what?
For a good against the spread.
Correct. The Chargers are 4-0 against the spread thus far this season. They obviously beat Seattle and covered against beat Seattle as underdogs and covered against both Buffalo and Jacksonville. And their lone loss was to Arizona by just 1 point. So you have one of the undefeated teams and one of the winless teams. Any other guesses as to the others?
Arizona Cardinals.
No.
I thought they were undefeated.
They are undefeated, but not against the spread, as they didn't cover against the Chargers, as I just mentioned. I'll give you a hint for one of the winless teams. It's actually one of the better teams in the NFL. One of the real favorites to go all the way.
Well, one of them's got to be New England. Have they covered in the spread yet?
Yes, they have.
Yeah. See, this is why I'm a good bettor, because this is a week-to-week league, and if I were harping on the past, I wouldn't have a clear view.
That's true. Past performance doesn't equal future.
The Broncos have not covered a spread.
Correct.
Got it.
Broncos have not covered a 7-point spread against either the Colts or the Chiefs, and they lost to Seattle by 6 when it was about a 5-point spread. So something to keep in mind this week, as there's, again, 7-point favorites against the Cardinals.
Yes. A team that's been not undefeated, but very good.
Yes. All right. Any other guesses? We need another hint.
Hint.
All right. So one of the undefeated teams is not the Cardinals, but a team that has done very well so far this season.
What kind of hint is that?
We called them the Darling earlier in the podcast.
Oh, the Bengals.
The Bengals are, in fact, not only 3-0, but 3-0 against the spread as well. A lot of low expectations heading into the season for the Bengals. And finally, the last winless team against the spread is the New York Jets, as they are 0-3-1 against the spread of the season.
I should know that I had them. No, I didn't. Not here.
Okay. All right. So I think what to take away from that is that the Chargers and the Bengals have definitely outperformed expectations so far this season, and we like them in certain spots going forward. Whereas everybody knows the Jaguars are terrible. We'll have to see if the line adjusts in the future and they give them a little more leeway. It doesn't look like they have in Week 5, as they're only 6.5-point dogs against the Steelers, and maybe not think the Broncos are the world beaters that everybody kind of pictures them as.
Yeah.
All right, and the third and final question for you, not a gambling question, but do you know who leads the NFL in yards after catch?
Yards after catch?
Yes.
I'm going to say Jeremy Maclin.
It is not. It is an Eagle. So you're very close.
Jordan Matthews.
Jordan Matthews, no.
Raleigh Cooper.
Not right.
Darren Sproles.
It's Darren Sproles.
I just got shown up by my fiance who knew the answer to this question.
So Dan, I think we've learned that maybe you're getting your football knowledge from somewhere else. Maybe this isn't all you. There's some behind-the-scenes Wizard of Oz pulling the strings.
We discuss these picks on a weekly basis.
All right. So yes, Darren Sproles is the leader in the NFL with yards after catch. He has 200 yards after the catch through 4 weeks. He also is second in the NFL in punt return average through 4 weeks, so pretty good for a fifth-round pick.
So Darren Sproles is good.
Yes, in case you didn't know, that's our fact of the week. Darren Sproles is good. All right, so that's our Stump the Shark question. Dan, you did okay. Your fiance,
Not really.
Your fiance did better. So we're going to conclude with your Week 5 picks. You have 3 picks on the docket. The first 2 are kind of related. The first one, you're completing your 3-team teaser they had open.
I opened the door to the stuff.
So you had that 3-team teaser open with one final leg. You're going to complete that with New Orleans Saints at a pick'em. And then related, another play this week you like is New Orleans -10.
Yeah, I don't usually double down. I'm doubling down on this one.
So instead of you're going against what we just talked about with the Saints not really performing well so far this season, but that was on the road. So now they're in Week 5. They're at home against Tampa Bay, and let us in your thought process a little bit here.
I think that. So I remember last year I got like this with the Bills. We're on a week-to-week basis. I kind of knew what to expect. I kind of think I'm like that on Tampa Bay right now. I think they came in, they shocked the world. They had that win that everybody saw last minute against Pittsburgh, but they're not that good. I feel like this line is a 10-point line against the Saints. The Saints look really bad on national TV. People are going to think too many points. I think Saints are at home, and this is the game they get back on track. And if I'm wrong, this is the last time I'm betting on them.
Okay. Yeah, the Buccaneers certainly aren't a team that really worries me. I think the Saints are definitely going to win here. They're at home. They're a different team at home than they are on the road. So I definitely like completing the teaser with them, getting it down to a pick-em. As far as a 10-point spread, I'm still hesitant because I haven't seen anything from them. Even their win,
it wasn't impressive.
Which was at home. They won 20-9 against the Vikings when Bridgewater had to come in mid-game for Castle after Castle got injured. And not to Bridgewater, in all appearances, looks to be a better quarterback than Castle is, but he didn't get reps in practice all week. He had to come in mid-game, didn't have the game plan worked around him at all. So that's a really tough spot for him. And the fact that they were still in the game until the final quarter, and it was a close 11-point win for the Saints. Nothing about the Saints has impressed me so far this season.
But also keep in mind, Mike Evans is out.
That's true.
So Tampa Bay has Doug Martin, who I don't like at all. He scored a touchdown last week because someone on Pittsburgh got away with one of the most blatant holds I've ever seen.
Yeah, still only 40 yards on 14 carries or whatever he had last week.
And Vincent Jackson was pretty much non-existent until that final play.
He looks very not into games.
I completely agree.
He just looks like he's going through the motions. I think the poor start to the season really got to him. He was maybe expecting to be on a winner. He's never really been a part of a team that's gone deep in the playoffs. Maybe that aspect of things is getting to him as he gets a little later into his career.
And he's always been the kind of guy who looked the part so much that he convinced you how good he was. But he's disappeared. He appears disinterested sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm just not impressed. I think this is a blowout, and I'm happy the fact that I have this 10-point teaser going because we can agree the Saints are probably going to win the game.
Yeah,
right?
I love the completion of the 3-team teaser right here with the Saints. I think that's as surefire of bet as you're going to have this season.
So I'm thinking worst case scenario, this goes 1-1.
Okay. But again, as you mentioned, this would be going against public perception. Maybe people think, oh, maybe Tampa Bay is not as bad as everybody thought. They just beat the Steelers, and then this is kind of the old zigzag thing going on right here.
Yeah, got the zigzag on with the Buccaneers.
All right. Plus the Saints, because everybody saw them lay an egg against the Cowboys, and everybody, including myself, is very much out on them. So.
But remember how good they looked. Like I can't. Maybe it's just me. Maybe that's a weakness on my part. I can't shake how good I thought they looked at one point in the preseason.
Yeah. Well, this will certainly be a final test, perhaps, for you with the Saints one way or another, as you are doubling down with them, both completing your 3-team teaser and getting them at -10.
If they can't completely dominate in a game that they have to win against an inferior opponent, I agree. Unbettable rest of the year.
All right. And your third and final play of Week 5 is a 2-team teaser. You like San Diego and Pittsburgh, getting those both down to a pick-em. San Diego has actually been moved up to -7. What was the line?
I had it over 6.5.
You got it 6.5.
So it's -0.5 points. So basically pick 'em.
0.5, basically a pick 'em. So you can parlay the money lines with San Diego and Pittsburgh if you want to get a true pick 'em with both, or you can do the
Just take the -1.
Take
You're
the
fine.
-1. So we got the Chargers at home against the Jets. We got the Steelers on the road against Jacksonville. You want to talk a little bit about those two matchups?
So after a lot of research, the two teams that I think are going to win the game are good, and the two teams that I think are going to lose these games are really, really bad.
Yeah.
How's that for some top-notch expert advice?
That is some advanced sabermetrics right there.
That's what my fiance told me earlier. Actually, I don't know.
Yeah, you're behind the scenes guru that you obviously give all your advice. Yeah, ironically, those are two of the teams that are winless against the spread that I brought up for one of the questions. That was done independently of your picks this week. So
and the Jaguars keep on getting these favorable lines because it's like the lines makers think that okay, they're at home in a good spot, but this team's just been so consistently bad that spots don't really matter. Now, I did tease them just to be a little safe. I think they lose by 10 or more, and the Jets aren't even home. They don't even have the home field to lean on.
No, Chargers one of the best passing offenses in the league. They've really struggled to run the ball, and the Jets have one of the better run defenses in the league with Wilkinson and Richardson up front. But you know what? The Chargers aren't going to try to run the ball because the Jets are extremely thin in the secondary. Rivers has a lot of weapons out there on the outside, and with a couple tight ends, Darius Green might be back this week. We'll have to see on that. But he's got plenty weapons as it is, and they're just going to shred that Jets secondary by any estimation.
And the Jets seem to be in a little bit of a tailspin right now. They have fan outcry to replace the quarterback. You have questions about Coach Rex Ryan's if he's going to be the coach much longer.
Geno Smith getting fined for yelling at a fan.
He got snippy today in a press conference too. People are talking about Vic and him being replaced, and it just for a young guy like that, I think you could tell it's starting to get to him a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation for guys like that. They've probably been pampered all their lives.
Yeah.
Everybody surrounding them says, "Oh, you're the best thing ever," which, you know, he was the best thing ever. Most of his
At West
life.
Virginia, he was.
He got to the NFL after all, which means you're top 1% of the quarterbacks out there. 1% of the 1%. So he's never.
I disagree.
He's never really
I don't
faced
think
adversity.
Blaine Gabbert's in the top 1% of quarterbacks out there, and he's in the NFL.
And was traded for a draft pick. Just continue to be one of the more mind-boggling transactions that happened this past offseason. But yeah, Geno Smith, it might be the first time he's really faced true adversity as far as people questioning his talent, and it's interesting to see how guys react to that in those situations.
So I'm betting on the Chargers to take care of business at home. Remember, they don't have to cover any spread. They could struggle the entire game and kick a last-minute field goal, and we'll still win with the tease. And I'm banking on Jacksonville not winning their first game of the year against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Jacksonville certainly hasn't shown anything to lead you to believe that they're going to be winning a game anytime soon. I mean, Bortles looked a little better last week than Chad Henne was giving them, but they still cannot run the ball at all. And, you know, he's still a rookie. Some inconsistent plays last week, even though you did look at it for stretches of the game. And their defense is awful, and they got one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and with Antonio Brown catching everything.
Huh.
He actually had
every single game that the quarterback has just ripped them apart.
Yeah, I mean, Antonio Brown has the top 3 receiver as far as receptions and receiving yards so far this season, and him and Wheaton has looked good in his rookie season.
Keith Miller's having a really good year.
Keith Miller having a bounce-back year after he was slowed by his injury last season. So a lot of weapons for the Steelers' passing attack. Le'Veon Bell has been probably the second best rusher in the NFL so far this season, behind DeMarco Murray.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was going to say who's won.
Yeah, DeMarco Murray just lapping the field so far this
Le'Veon
season.
Bell has a lot of receiving yards, too.
He does, and he also has the longest run of the season with his 81-yard run that he had. But, yeah, just a lot of weapons for the Steelers offensively.
Two guys who I avoided in every fantasy draft I was in.
Yeah, which goes to show. You should ask Elisa. It's really what it boils down to. So yeah, I feel good about both the Chargers and the Steelers winning this week, and by teasing those two teams, that's all you need them to do. So I feel pretty confident with you on that.
One thing I want to talk about: interesting spread of the week. Cincinnati, 1.5-point favorites at New England. I wrote down and crossed out New England plus 1.5 about 25 times before I submitted my picks for this week.
So to you, that's a really fishy line.
Yeah.
Because the Bengals are coming off a bye. They've looked great their first 3 games, and New England looked awful.
And all the talk in sports media right now is how this is the end for the Patriots.
Yeah.
It's like the books are on their knees begging you to put all your money on Cincinnati here.
Yeah, you're right. It is a really fishy line in that regard. And I guess it's just how bad the Patriots have looked that kept you from siding with New England.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this might be a trap, and the public wins sometimes.
Yeah.
And this might be one of those. I just wanted to bring that up because I was interested in your thoughts.
I pretty much agree with that breakdown. It's very similar to when the Cardinals went into New York a few weeks back, and the Giants had looked awful, and you're like, oh, this is exactly
That's
the
right.
spot.
They got me on that one.
A home team facing a team traveling cross country, and you said this is the spot I would bet on them 99% of the time, but the Giants just haven't shown me anything, and I think it's a similar situation here with how bad the Patriots have looked. Their offensive line is in shambles. He's not giving Brady any time. Brady's making bad throws even when he has time. They got no running game right now, and the defense has been okay, but it hasn't lived up to the improvements people expected to when they got Revis and made a few other additions in the offseason.
Just a reminder to the listeners, it's a Sunday night game. You're either going to be up some money from the day or down and want to make it back. It's going to be a really tempting game to bet on. People always want to bet on the Sunday, Monday night games.
Yeah.
Just don't. Just don't bet on this one.
Never bet midday or mid-weekend based on how previous plays have done for you that weekend. You did the research throughout the week. You have your slate of plays that you're going to make. Just stick with those. If the first few don't work out, there's no need to go with stuff that is either under-researched or that you're just kind of taking a shot in the dark.
Yeah, and the best way to put it is if you wouldn't bet on a game if it was part of the 1 o'clock on Sunday slate, then don't bet on it because it's a Monday or Sunday game.
Yeah, you don't get increased value in your lines because it's a primetime game and on national television. That's not how the bookmaking works.
But that'll be a fun game to watch. It'll be interesting to follow, and hopefully we'll be doing so in high spirits because we'll have a 3-0 week.
Yep, and at the very least 2-1 and get you back over 500 on the season.
Yeah, and then it's all good from here on out.
Then it's all parades and
glory.
Yes. All right, so thanks everybody for listening. That concludes our Week 5 podcast, and we'll catch everybody next week.
Good luck.